John 20, starting at verse 19 through verse 31. On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being shut, where the disciples were, for the fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. And Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even so I send you." And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." Now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see his hands and the print of the nails, and place my finger in the marks of the nails, and place my hand in his side, I will not believe." 8 days later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. The doors were shut, but Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Put your hand and place it in my side. Do not be faithless, but believing." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. There is a lot happening in the world today, and if you're like me, you've watched so much stuff on TV that you're just on overload. With the war in the Ukraine and all the refugees and things like that, and maybe you're wondering how you can help. And we have a emergency response. You'll see it in your bulletin, and I encourage you to give. This provides food and shelter, and mainly what you are doing is you are giving food, clothing, shelter to especially the women and the children that have been leaving Ukraine and now refugees in Poland and surrounding countries. So I want to encourage you to that. And if you just want to talk to Keith. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. He's usually behind me here. He can take care of it for you if you'd like. And that will go directly to assistance of our fellow churches around the world, and they are helping in amazing ways. We have young men from our country and from so many countries of the world who are streaming there to fight this morning. And part of my sermon this morning is about Moses. And Moses faced, unbelievable trials. He faced an army that could wipe him out as well. But he was an amazing man, Moses. He was probably the greatest character of the Old Testament. He was a person who was bigger than life itself. I mean, you instantly were drawn to him for some reason or other. When he was just a couple months old, his mother, fearing his death by the authorities, put him in a basket and floated him down the Nile River to a place where she knew that one of the princesses of Egypt was using the water there to bathe in, and she had no children. I think she knew this, and she'd hoped, beyond hope, that maybe something good would happen, and it did. Moses is taken in by this princess. He is raised in the courts of Egypt. He goes to the finest schools, all that sort of thing. He is in the court of kings, and then he kills an Egyptian who is beating a Hebrew. And he's driven out of Egypt across the desert, and then he comes to a family that is out in the country herding sheep and goats, and he settles there, marries, has children, and then he sees the burning mountain, And he goes up on the mountain and he meets God and he sees the burning bush. Yeah. I really like Moses. Moses is, he is this, he's an elite. He's educated. He probably speaks many languages. He has been to the best schools. He has seen the greatest priests. He's probably been in the military. He is a fighter. And now he is a shepherd with a staff. He goes up on the mountain and he hears the Lord. He sees the burning bush. You know what I really like? If you read the Bible closely, you'll find this. God shows him all this great stuff. He shows him power, the rod that he's going to use, turns into a snake, all that kind of stuff. You know what Moses says? You can read it for yourself. Oh God, please send somebody else. You read it, that's exactly what it says. And it says, God's anger burned against Moses. I'm not sure what that really means, but God just basically, like sometimes we get angry with our kids, just go. And that's the final word, and he gets off the mountain, He doesn't want to mess with the Lord, so he goes. He is very reluctant, that sort of thing. But he was a great man. But one of his great desires in all of his heart was to see God. There were so many questions he had, the way people in Egypt acted, and probably even out in the country where he had gone to be with Jethro and his family and that sort of thing. And he wanted to see God. Now, he had seen the burning bush. He had heard the voice, all that stuff, but he hadn't actually seen God. Easter is coming up before too long. We're in the season of Lent. Last Wednesday was Ash Wednesday. And if you haven't watched the movie 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, I encourage you to sit down with your family and watch it. It is a really long movie. I think it's almost 3 hours long. When I did confirmation with the kids in my church, I would make them watch this. And I think they enjoyed it because we had lots of snacks, of course. And I kind of narrated along, and I'd say, we don't really know if this part's true, but it's, Hollywood, that sort of thing. Well, we talk about different things that happen. But I encourage you to sit down and watch the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. Now, if you're pretty young, you may not know who these people are, but if you're older like me, you know who these people are. They're a lot of fun. And I cannot really do imitations of Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner, so I won't try to do that. But, I think Charlton Heston got Moses pretty right, the way that he might have been. In his portrayal, you see a man who wants to see God, to know that he is. In the movie, they don't show the scene, but the book of Exodus, chapter 33, Moses asked the Lord, "Now show me your glory." God is not angry at this question. And he doesn't seem too troubled by the request, but this is what God tells him. And the Lord said, "I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you. I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence." And then he says, "I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live." And the Lord said, "There is a place near me where you may stand on a rock." Now this is at the mountain where when they're out in the wilderness. He says, "I'm going to put you on a rock, and when my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and I'm going to cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you'll see my back. But my face must not be seen." Exodus 33:19. Okay, so Moses has taken the people across the Red Sea. He has taken them into the wilderness. He's up on the mountain of God, and they have this exchange. The desire to see God is not new. Even the disciples had it. In the Gospel of John, Jesus is trying to tell the disciples that he must go to the cross, be crucified, and that they will know what to do. And Philip asked this question, "Lord, show us the Father, and it will be enough for us." we want to see God. And Jesus gives him this answer to Philip. And it's kind of a funny answer. He says, don't you know me, Philip? Even if after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. John 14. Philip would not understand this until later. If you've ever wanted to see God, you're not alone. You're actually in very, very good company. And it isn't a question that the Lord does not want us to ask. He did not get mad at Moses. Jesus did not get mad at Philip. Usually when we want to see God, it's those times in our lives that we want to know what the truth is, truth how God sees it. Maybe something's dividing our friends, our church, our country, the world, something like that. And the longing often goes something like this. If I could only have 5 minutes with the Lord, and if he could answer 5 questions, my soul would be satisfied. I would know for sure. Moses wanted to know that God is, that he really is. And if he is, why, Moses wants to know why he hasn't done something about the bondage of the Hebrews in Egypt. And then when God says, well, I'm sending you to take care of it, he says, I don't want to go. Philip wanted to see the Father, like Moses, and he thought Jesus could make that happen. Well, both of them wanted to move from belief to knowledge. Yet, in all this great longing of the soul, we are called to have faith, a great and a wonderful faith. The writer of the New Testament book of Hebrews has a wonderful chapter about faith. It's chapter 11. If you want to learn about faith, just read that chapter. In fact, you might want to read it this afternoon. Now, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what is visible. Hebrews 11, 1 through 3. And it says, and without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. We have a life that is built on faith. I suppose that last part, earnestly seek him, is the most important part. I was at a conference a while back, and the speaker said this about faith today. Young people are not asking if the virgin birth really happened. Young people are not asking if Jesus did indeed die on the cross. They are not even questioning that he rose from the grave. What they're asking is, what difference does all that make in my life today? And it could be this, that our great job, our great ministry, the thing that we are to do is to demonstrate faith. A great faith, a powerful and a driving faith in our lives and in the life of the church. In a few weeks, we will celebrate the resurrection, when Jesus revealed himself to the disciples. He first meets with Mary Magdalene in the garden. Then he meets 2 of the disciples on the Emmaus Road. In the Gospel of John, he meets with the disciples behind the locked doors. And their joy is starting to overflow. But not everyone is there, and especially the disciple Thomas. So when he arrives, they tell him, we have seen the Lord. And Thomas responds in a way that they do not expect. This is what he says, unless I see myself, I won't believe. And he says, unless I put my finger through the nail holes in his hands and put my hand in his side, I'm not going to believe. And that's where he gets the name Doubting Thomas. But I can't blame him. They were asking him to believe something that was almost impossible, it seemed like. He just thought, well, maybe these people had all gone crazy with grief and, they're making up stories and that sort of thing. And he says, I won't believe till I see myself. In the Gospel of John, Jesus waits a week and a day. Maybe it's just to give Thomas a little time. And sometimes I think maybe Jesus is just having fun with him. And the other disciples are making plans. They're getting back to their lives, even preaching, worshiping, joy, fun, but not Thomas. He's still stuck. He's stuck back there somewhere. You know, it must have been very hard on him. The other disciples have seen it strengthened their faith, and they're moving forward. Faith is like that. If you're stuck, it is the power that can move you forward. And they're learning this little by little. A week goes by, a week and a day, and the disciples are all together, and the doors are closed, and all of a sudden, Jesus is there among them. And the first thing he tells them, be at peace. Then he turns his attention to Thomas and says, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach your hand out and put it in my side. And he says this, stop doubting and believe. And you know, when I read that, I thought to myself about my dear wife, Chris. Yes, she does actually exist. I do have a wife. And, you know, I have this disease, and sometimes it works on your nerves, and you get into depression. And so when I get depressed, I say to my loving wife, Chris, I'm depressed. She says, you're not allowed to believe, snap out of it. I'm like, okay. Stop doubting and believe. Jesus is just kind of matter of fact for them. He's tired of this doubting and he wants it to stop. And if you've ever wondered if Jesus gets tired of things that we do, yeah, he does sometimes. Thomas sees and he believes. But then Jesus delivers one of his famous lines that has stayed with us ever since. Because you have seen me, you believe. Blessed are those who have not seen and who have believed. John 20, verse 29. You are the blessed ones. The ones who have not seen, yet believe. You still may want to see God just like Moses, just like the disciples did. You may want Jesus to show you the Father, just like Philip. But you've been given a great faith. Faith so great that when it comes to it, you can move mountains, literally. I've seen it happen many times. We shall one day all see the Lord. We will move from faith to knowledge. That day will come for all of us. Now we walk by faith. Strengthen your faith, friends. Reach out in faith, and God will reward you in the mighty things that you will be able to do. Friends, this morning, all over the world, Christians are gathering to pray for those in the Ukraine. Those in the Ukraine, I saw that some of the priests were there too, so I'm sure that the priests are there, you know, they're 5 or 6 hours ahead of us, so they've already worshiped. It's almost supper time there. But they have been there this morning, and I'm sure that the priests have been out on the line with the men preaching about faith, to have faith, to believe that God is in control of all things. May we turn unto the Lord while we work like crazy to do all the good that we can. May we be in prayer for all peoples. Pray that this terrible destruction would end. Pray for freedom for these Ukrainian people. May we stand with them in so many great ways. And let us call upon the Lord in his great name. Friends, let us bow our heads in a word of prayer. Well, Father, this morning we come to hear your word spoken, and we have heard it. We call upon your great name to be with these people of Ukraine, to bless them, to give them hope and a future. And, oh Lord, be with us as we do the small things that we can to help them. And we give you thanks. And all God's children said, amen.